and agents of the bankers and the bosses are usurping the basic democratic rights of people to choose their own representatives. Even though these representatives, some of them are corrupt, it really doesn't matter. They still have a right to choose their leadership. And when we talk about corruption, who can be more corrupt than Wall Street? These people have stolen trillions of dollars from us just over the last decade. In the state of Michigan itself, we've lost 1 million jobs. Many of them industrial jobs, but other jobs are professional jobs as well as service jobs. And there's no prospect under capitalism to bring those jobs back. These declines in the conditions that we are facing in Detroit and in Michigan and in many other areas of the country is really the scandal, the major scandal of the 21st century. Now, I'm here today to talk about the question of housing, the crisis in housing. And the way we approach the question of the foreclosure and eviction epidemic and pandemic, we believe firmly that housing is a right, just like we believe a job is a right. We believe that health care is a right, and we believe education is a right. It is this context that we have to view the current problem of foreclosure and eviction. It was not the housing crisis that caused the economic meltdown, but just the opposite. It was the economic crisis that actually precipitated the housing crisis here in the United States. The broader crisis of modern-day capitalism has wrecked the housing industry in the United States. Millions have already lost their homes and apartments. Millions more are under threat of losing them. Most homeowners are underwater, what's considered underwater, where the value of their homes and the mortgages in which they pay and the rents in which they pay is far less than the mortgages and rents that they are obligated to dole out every month to the landlords and to the bankers. With the collapse of the mortgage industry in 2007 and 2008, the federal government, through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, has assumed the toxic debt created by the bankers. In fact, 70% of the mortgages now in the United States are actually controlled by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which was taken over by the federal government some 3.5 years ago. So that means that they're using our tax dollars, brothers and sisters, to not only rip us off, but also to evict us from our homes and apartments. This is really outrageous. What happens is that, and we've talked about this on many occasions through the Moratorium Now Coalition to stop foreclosures and evictions and utility shutoffs, that the mortgage bankers and also Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac insure mortgages for the full value of what these mortgages are supposed to be worth. So therefore, there's really no incentive to refinance and also to bring down the cost of these mortgages and also to bring down the cost of the principal on these mortgages. Because if they're insured, they have more of an incentive to put you out, because when they put you out of your house, they collect the full value of the mortgages. Even though your home may be worth $20,000 and your mortgage is $200,000, when you're foreclosed on and thrown out of your home, the bankers collect $200,000, even though the mortgages are only worth $20,000. And some are even worse, less than that in the city of Detroit. So it's been devastating. The cost of these decisions have been passed on to the workers and the youth of the United States as well as the peoples throughout the world. In Detroit, we have for the last 5 years, we've done a considerable amount of work and paid a lot of attention to the demand for not only a citywide and a statewide, but a national moratorium on foreclosures and evictions. Detroit was once the industrial hub of the capitalist world. Today, it has become the brunt of overproduction and restructuring of the capitalist system. Workers and oppressed people in the city, through their mass and industrial struggles, were able to win significant concessions from the ruling class between the 1930s and the 1970s. Seeing the determination of the workers of Detroit, the bosses, backed by the federal government, restructured industry, particularly heavy industry and the auto industry, and they struck back with a vengeance against the workers and the nationally oppressed. Today, we're in a state of protracted class warfare in the city of Detroit. Just wanted to give you a couple of examples of what has been going on recently. As I mentioned, we've been under this threat of emergency management in the city of Detroit, where they want to appoint, the bankers want to appoint financial advisory board to actually usurp the authority of the mayor and the city council. They also want to get in to bust the unions, the municipal unions in the city of Detroit. We have thousands of city employees who are organized under ASME and the Teamsters as well as the UAW. The salaries of public workers in the city of Detroit have basically been frozen over the last decade. So there really hasn't been a pay raise for workers at all. Hundreds of workers have been laid off in the recent period as well. There are also threats to cut back on health care benefits, to cut back on pension benefits, and also to engage in further layoffs. There was a proposal floated to lay off some 2,500 city employees in order to supposedly address this crisis. We're also in a situation where our bond ratings, which is done by Fitch and Moody's and Standard & Poor's and these other people, are at junk status. So therefore, this just puts more debt obligation on the workers and the oppressed inside the city of Detroit. What has happened, though, the people have been fighting back. The unions have refused consistently to accept large-scale concessions. They fought it through the courts. They have fought it through mass demonstrations. Also, it's very interesting to note that there was a petition drive to repeal what is known as Public Act 4. People call this the dictator law. This law was passed a year ago when the conservative Republican governor, Rick Snyder, came into office. This draconian bill actually provides the pseudo-legal basis for the imposition of austerity and emergency management for the city of Detroit. Well, in Michigan, you have a referendum process where if you go out and collect so many signatures, these issues can be put on the ballot. Now, when all these things developed in other cities like Benton Harbor and Flint and Pontiac and Ecorse and so forth, and now they're talking about Inkster, there was very little pushback on the part of the workers and people in the community. But when they said they were going to do this in the city of Detroit, people were alarmed, despite the fact that every single day through the corporate media they're telling us that this is the only solution, that emergency management would be a good thing. And they also have the nerve to tell us that this is going to be the solution to our problems as a city. But they say nothing about turning the street lights back on. They say nothing about improving public transportation. And I've written about this on a weekly basis in Workers' World. We have 250 buses in the city that are sitting idle because they don't have enough spare parts. They won't allow the mechanics to work overtime. They've also had layoffs in the Detroit Department of Transportation. So therefore, it's important, and I'm going to wrap up because I could talk about this for hours. But the thing is, Detroit represents a microcosm of the overall urban struggle that working class people and oppressed people are facing here in the United States. And of course, people went out and collected 226,000 signatures on these petitions over the recent period to put this issue on the ballot. We only needed 161,000 signatures, and we got 226,000. They were submitted 2 weeks ago to the Secretary of State's office in Lansing. 200 people went up in buses and car caravans to deliver these petitions to the state government. Not to be outdone, the governor and the bankers and the bosses are saying that they're going to impose what they call a consent agreement on the city of Detroit, irrespective of this petition drive that is designed to repeal Public Act 4. If these signatures are ratified, it will nullify Public Act 4. It will not be able to be implemented, and there has to be an election this coming November. So in order to subvert the popular will of the people, they're talking about drafting another law to nullify the petition drive, or imposing this consent decree that would in fact take no consideration of the petition drive that we carried out just recently in Detroit. We've been involved in all these struggles, been working with City Councilwoman Joanne Watson and other forces, progressive forces in the city government on a principle basis. They specifically sought out our assistance. Sister Joanne Watson calls us the left, and that she relies on the left for assistance. We participated with ideas, with bold political initiatives. We passed out 8,000 flyers just back during the holidays. We mobilized a meeting of 2,000 people to say no to emergency management.